Zuko made the decision to not kill Ozai near the end of episode 311, The Day of Black Sun, Part 2. Ozai shoots lightning at Zuko, attempting to kill his son as punishment for his son betraying him. But Zuko has learned from his uncle Iroh how to redirect lightning, and he has the opportunity to redirect it directly at Ozai, instantly killing him. Yet he chooses not to, instead directing the lightning elsewhere. As a metaphor, this is beautiful, because of the guidance provided by the person he refers to as his real father, the lovely Uncle Iroh. Zuko can absorb Ozai's lightning without dying, just like he absorbs the verbal barbs Ozai tosses at him without flinching. And instead of repaying Ozai an eye for an eye, he redirects that lightning. He says that he knows his destiny, and that killing the Fire Lord is the Avatar's destiny. The second part of this statement is rather self-evident, and it's something that Aang has to deal with when the time comes for him to make the choice about whether he is willing to kill the Fire Lord. He can't do it, but it is the first part of that sentence that is more interesting and more underappreciated. At first blush, it seems to exist only to contrast with the statement that immediately follows it. But there is a lot more going on here than that. He's saying that it is not his destiny to kill the Fire Lord, or more generally, that violence and bloodshed are not his destiny. As he says in episode 313, the firebending masters, he does not want to be fueled by hate and anger anymore. This is not pacifism per se, but it affected me more deeply than any of the violence won't solve anything statements that Aang consistently offers. It's easy to denounce violence when you've been raised your entire life to denounce violence, especially if you, like Aang, are an airbender, an element that is based around detachment. Airbending is more about finding clever solutions to problems, or extricating oneself from problems than facing them head-on. It means a lot more when someone like Zuko, someone who has only known war and violence and militarism his entire life, turns away from that. This is the same reason why Korra showing empathy toward Kuvira and convincing her to step down with words is so dang cathartic. It is the opposite of the value she has been previously dedicated toward. For Zuko, this marks a turning point for him. He can no longer firebend after this point because his firebending has been fueled by rage and destruction. Only after visiting the Sun Warriors and meeting their masters, the dragons, Ran and Shaw, does Zuko finally appreciate that firebending does not need to be fueled by violence and desperation. It's simply energy. Whether you take that in a constructive or destructive direction is entirely up to you. Even though he uses violence to defeat Azula, he does not revel in his power, and this is important. He's turned away from that kind of life. This is not the kind of video game where you defeat the final boss and they play dramatic fanfare and give you a great high score. It's a tragedy, and Zuko has become mature enough to understand that. The loathing he had for Azula in his childhood has been transformed into recognition of just how sad their childhood really was, and how lucky he was to escape that household. From a character perspective, Zuko's decision to not kill Ozai was absolutely the right choice. It fits his transformation over the course of Avatar: The Last Airbender. But was it the right decision from a practical perspective? That is a lot less certain. Now, one could say that, hey, everything turned out alright. He defeated the Fire Lord, and peace returned to the land, so there's nothing to complain about. But I have two major issues with this line of thinking. The first is that the victory of Aang over Ozai was nowhere near guaranteed, and that a lot of luck and belief were needed to secure that victory. The second point is that even after the defeat of Ozai, Aang's decision to keep him alive, and by extension Zuko's decision to keep him alive earlier, haunts the life of Zuko after the end of the show, when he has to try and take up ruling and change the culture of a country that has only known war for a century. The first issue I covered well in my analysis on whether Aang should have killed Ozai, so I won't spend too much time reiterating those points, but again I say that my issues with that fight are not with lion turtles or energy bending. This fits who Aang is. It fits his ethos of finding a different solution to problems that appear to only have a set number of solutions. Think about episode 113, The Blue Spirit. Up to this point, the relations between Aang and Zuko have been rather dichotomous. The big question driving the tension has been, is Aang going to escape from Zuko, or is Zuko going to capture him? But Aang proves himself willing to transcend this binary by straight up asking Zuko near the end of the episode whether Zuko is willing to be Aang's friend. At this point, he has only vague intimation that Zuko is anything more than completely vile, but he takes a chance, and in the long term, he is proven correct. Zuko rejects this offer then, but he does not forget about it, and indeed, he brings that offer up again when he tries to join Aang and the group in episode 312, the Western Air Temple. My bigger problem is with Aang only entering the Avatar state because Ozai throws him against a rock that just happens to hit him in the same spot where he was struck by Azula, thus opening his chakras. It leaves the fight feeling much more unsettled than it otherwise would have. You get the feeling that it very easily could have gone the other way. And then we have the issue of what happens to Zuko after Zuko becomes the Fire Lord. Despite what we, as Avatar fans, may like, Zuko does not get his happily ever after. Instead, he has to deal with the drudgery of ruling a country in a time of great tumult and change. He has to bear the responsibility of converting a corrupt authoritarian nationalist regime into a multicultural nation capable of leading the Avatar world into the future. There is an ultra-royalist uprising against him. The new Ozai Society wants to reconvert the Fire Nation into that nationalistic, militaristic state. It wants to undo Zuko's reforms. And they come uncomfortably close to succeeding in deposing Zuko and replacing him with Ozai. Thankfully, they fail, in large part because Azula proves to be a far less reliable ally to the society than they had first anticipated. And partly because the leader of the society, May's father, proves to be a far less effective and intelligent leader than a movement like this would need to achieve all its goals. But the fact that it even came so close is a problem. The dream of a better world deteriorated before it even started. I'm not saying it would have been a perfect decision to kill Ozai. Even from a practical standpoint, it would have been significantly harder for Zuko to win praise from the established sections of the old Ozai government if he had killed Ozai. And some people, if it had happened this way, would have seen it as nothing more than a family squabble, as opposed to what actually happens, wherein the Avatar defeats the Fire Lord by taking his powers, which is seen by a lot of people as more justified because the Avatar is the spiritual leader who is considered to be above mere partisan politics. But if Zuko had killed Ozai, the arch-nationalists in the new Ozai society would not have had a figure to rally around. What Zuko does when he decides to not kill Ozai is to choose his values over what is practically safe. Like Katara or Aang, he proves himself to be an idealist, in spite of himself. It is worth going down the harder path, he concludes, if it is the morally right one. It's taken a long time for him to find out what is morally right, but now that he knows it in his soul and spirit, he's going to pursue it with all due gusto. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like and comment and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching. Avatar: The Last Airbender is a brilliant, clever, empathetic show that I am so glad is finally getting the respect it deserves. It really is one of the best shows of its entire decade, animated or otherwise. Anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.